Welcome back, everyone, to the Shoot Your Shot Sports Fantasy Lifeline show with me, your host, J Ballar. Looking forward to diving into all the great action we had from week one. And all I can say is, God damn, it feels good to have football back. Feels good to have fans in the stands. Oh, man, I've been pumped. I've been amped. I don't even want to say pumped, amped since that Thursday night game. Most of you guys know, big Dallas Cowboys fan. Wanted us to pull off the victory, but Tom Brady always gets what he wants. Guys that go for a reason. Still like when we're sitting there with my boys. Closing out with a great one last night. Raiders, Ravens, overtime. Derek Carr pulling it out of his ass there at the end. But a lot to cover in between there. We're going to go through some of the injuries today. I'm going to talk about some of the top waiver picks. I'm going to go through some of the players and teams that I'm buying, some of them I'm selling, some of the guys I'm holding on to because hey, it was week one. We don't want to get over anxious and start lighting our team on fire and throw them in the trash just yet. To wrap up the show today, gonna have a good friend of mine, Drew Steinweg, on to do what we do best, and that is to talk fantasy football. So should be a great show, guys. Let's get it started right now. We never go unscathed in week one. This week one was no different. Did have a couple of injuries while we were able to really get away from the major injuries that we've had in the years past. No top 5 picks went down this year yet, so let's keep our fingers crossed. We know the game of football, especially fantasy football, is fun when we get to watch these guys play week in, week out. So this week we did have a handful. We'll start at the quarterback position with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Right now they're saying we're looking at 8 weeks. He's got a hip issue, and I think it's hard to tell how he. From a fantasy perspective, unless you owned Ryan Fitzpatrick and we're planning to start Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's probably the only people that it's gonna really truly affect. Heineke played extremely well with guys like Terry McLaurin and Logan Thomas last year. While McLaurin was a little slow this week, Logan Thomas did still get in the end zone. Antonio Gibson's going to maintain his touches, game in, game out. So I don't think we're in too bad a shape there with the Washington football team. Having Fitzpatrick go down again as a fan favorite. It's never fun to see Fitzmagic go down like that, but I do think Heineke is going to keep that offense moving along. I'm not adding him in any leagues. He's going to have a couple weeks where he really goes off for me to want to say, hey, yeah, well, you got to really roster, Taylor Heineke. So we'll keep your eyes peeled. But if you got Terry McLaurin, if you got Logan Thomas, you got Antonio Gibson, don't change the way you're approaching it. You're going to be starting those guys. Moving to the running back position, Raheem Mostert, I think, was the big injury from yesterday. A lot of excitement coming to this year, with this team, potential new quarterback. They got the defense back together. Mostert has missed most of the last 2 seasons with injury. And he looked really good in the preseason, as the number 1 back there. And anybody that knows the Kyle Shanahan offenses, whoever's running the ball is going to be extremely successful in fantasy football. So Mostert did come out today and did announce that he is out for the season. So he can be dropped immediately. We'll talk about some of his replacements when it comes here into the waiver wire segment of the show. Moving to the wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy was out there looking like Jerry Jeudy. Unfortunately, went down really funky. Luckily, we don't have a break, though. We're looking at 6 to 8 weeks, high ankle sprain. Monitor that. Some guys can heal from that injury much quicker than others. It's gonna linger all year round. But before he went out, man, he looked like a number 1 receiver. He looked great. Chris Sprouts. I'm really excited to get him back on the field and see what that offense can continue to do there in Denver. I thought Teddy Bridgewater played really well. We'll talk about some of the effects on that offense there in our waiver wire segment as well. And then to wrap it up, another receiver. Again, he was likely on most people's bench. Again, he's a great flex or a plug and play for bye weeks. Michael Gallup, the number 3 wide receiver there in Dallas. He does have a calf strain. We're looking at 3 to 6 weeks. I'm actually going to be dropping him in any league that I own him, and seeing what I can put it, what else I can put in there. We'll go through a couple options in the waiver segment. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll tell you guys when I think we should put him back in there. His replacement, Cedric Wilson, I don't think we're adding him just yet. What it's going to do is it's going to give even more targets to guys like Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. I think that we see a little bit more Zeke, out of the backfield catching balls with Gallup being out. So that's what we're looking at from an injury standpoint, guys. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we don't have anything pop up throughout these weeks during practice, as if these games have been tough enough on us. Bouncing off some of our injuries here, definitely looking forward to talking about week 1 of the waiver wire. Likely, this is going to be the first time the waiver wires ran for most of you. If you drafted early, you might have had one running of it. Some of the guys, the Latavius Murrays, the Tyson Williams, I kept those guys off because it's likely not going to be available in many leagues. I'm going to go through my top 5. Before we dive into this, I do want to remind you guys, please look at your waiver rules. See how they're ran, see how they operate, see how you either your push back or your push forward based on a weekly basis. If you have any questions, please reach out. So, diving into these guys, we have 5 guys that I think are worth picking up this week. Beyond that, it gets a little sketchy. I'd rather live on the ad drop wire. But for the waiver wire, number 5, Tim Patrick, stepping in for the injured Jerry Jeudy again. He outshined Cortland Sutton this week. I'm picking him up. I'm looking to put him into my flex. I like that offense. I see Tim Patrick stepping into a very similar role that he had last year. The guy's going to have some big weeks, but he's going to be extremely consistent. Number 4, Sterling Shepard. Literally, he's probably the wide receiver 1 there in New York for the Giants. Was clearly Daniel Jones' favorite target. Kenny Galladay missed most of the preseason, and they play 2 different roles. They're going to be able to really work off each other. Galladay is, he's owned 98% of leagues, 100% of leagues. Sterling Shepard probably not. He's had just as good as a career as Kenny Galladay. He can find the end zone. I think he went 113 and a touchdown. I expect that to continue. Moving forward, looking at number 3, Tony Jones Jr., backup running back there in New Orleans. Reason I like Tony Jones, and again, if you're in a situation where you need running backs, this is going to make sense. If you're in a situation where you're stacked at running back, go for Sterling Shepard and go for Tim Patrick. But Tony Jones Jr. kind of sits in that middle ground. The running back is really, really light this year. So in a situation where he's going to be in a good offense, he had 11 carries for 50 yards, had another catch, was on the field for, I want to say, 34% of the snaps. And a guy like Kamara, he hadn't carried the ball 20 times in a game in a long time. There's no way they're going to give Kamara the ball 20 times a game if they don't have to. He is the best player on the field. So I like Tony Jones Jr. The Saints have proven that they can be a legitimate 2 running back backfield because of how much they hand the ball off and throw to their running backs. Number 2, Kenneth Gainwell. He was actually the only Eagles running back that scored. Boston Scott was kind of an afterthought. Miles Sanders looked okay, but as we all know, Miles Sanders is injury prone, and if that ever happens, Kenneth Gainwell is the guy I want on my roster. He's gonna see 10 to 12 touches a game. He was able to put up 50 plus yards. He was able to get into the end zone. I'm stashing him, not quite starting him just yet, but that's an offense that's going to be handing the ball off to the running back quite a bit, going to be dishing it off to the running back as well out of the backfield, and he seems to complement the game very well that Jalen Hurts is trying to play. And the number 1 guy following the Mostert injury is Elijah Mitchell. He is the consensus number 1 ad. If you are the number 1 on your waiver wire this week, you have to grab him. He is the number 1 running back in a Kyle Shanahan offense. I don't care if it only lasts 3 to 5 weeks. He's going to be startable right off the bat. If you get a chance to grab him, please do. He came out of camp. He beat out Trey Sermon kind of unexpectedly. And, Trey Sermon, he might see the field. I don't know, but I know he's better than Jermichael Hasty. He showed it. I'm sprinting to get a guy like Elijah Mitchell. And, if you have any questions, want to follow up with anybody that you're thinking about, please don't hesitate to reach out. Let's take a look at some of my buy, my sell, and my hold candidates for this week. All right, typically, we're going to do a little bit of buy, sell, hold as the season continues. It's only week 1, guys, so I'm not selling anybody yet. But I will say that if you get the chance, there are a handful of people that I'm 100% buying, and I'm buying up as quick as I possibly can. And I know I'm a fan, but the Dallas Cowboys receivers, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, look to be two potential top 10 wide receivers in fantasy. They both went off in a game where the Cowboys lost. Now, are we going to expect weeks like this from them every single week where they both saw 14 targets on initial reads from the quarterback, leading the entire league? We're not going to see that every week. Ezekiel Elliott is still in that backfield. But this is going to be a pass-first offense. Dak called out or audibled out of 12 run plays. He has full range to go in and run that team. They're going to be putting up a lot of yards, and I'm very excited about these wide receivers here in Dallas. And I think if you get a chance, there's some guys you're going to want to go after. Number 2, the year might be here finally. Mike Williams. Mike Williams led targets for the Chargers yesterday. He is in an offense that is so perfect for him, it's not even funny. Keenan Allen is a route runner extraordinaire, can stretch the field, but Mike Williams, he's had some trouble with catches, trouble staying healthy. He finally has a top-tier wide receiver. He's looked like he's putting his mechanics together. He's somebody that has it all, and he can be a top 10 wide receiver as well. He's likely on most people's benches right now. Not to say it's going to be easy to grab him after the week he had, but he's someone that I'm definitely buying if I get the chance to. Another receiver, I was high on him early in the season. Again, I didn't talk to you guys, before the season started, but Corey Davis. Corey Davis is the number 1 receiver there in New York. He is Zach Williams' favorite target. He does look like the guy that the Titans drafted 4 or 5 years ago to be the number 1 receiver in Tennessee. So I have no problem going out, trying to land Corey Davis. I'm starting Corey Davis week in, week out. This is just the beginning of Zach Wilson. Those Jets are going to be playing from behind every single week. Yes, Crowder's going to come back. Denzel Mims is going to come back. I don't care. Corey Davis is going to be the number 1 receiver in that offense. Get him on your roster before it is too late. Another one, TJ Hawkinson. Extremely impressive. Now, I think he's going to be pretty hard to get because top tight ends are hard to get, but if someone's feeling a little frisky out there and you can land TJ Hawkinson, do so. That Lions offense is not going to be as bad as I or anyone else thought. He's going to see the targets. Almost broke 100 this week, put up a touchdown, led the team in targets. They played with the 49ers till the very end. I really, really, really like what TJ Hawkins is doing. He's probably moved into number 3, number 4, right with George Kittle. So get him if you can. Last one is, these rookie wide receivers. Devontae Smith scored. Jalen Waddle looked excellent. Jamar Chase scored, had 100 yards. Guys, they're playing with the quarterbacks they played with in college. Feel pretty confident that they were going to do well. Didn't think they'd do this well. You get a chance, go after some of these. It's week 1. Overreactions are going to come, guys. But come on, don't go too crazy. When I say hold, please hold. Don't diminish the value of the top picks that you have. Most importantly, the poor play by first-round drafted running backs. Ezekiel Elliott, Najee Harris, Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. Down the line, it was a rough day for first-round running backs. Don't give up on them just yet. Actually, don't give up on them at all. They're going to be just fine for you guys. Number 2, last night's game, Mark Andrews had some drops. Lamar Jackson had a tough time getting him the ball. I still think he's the top target of that offense. I'm still holding on to Andrews as long as I can, hoping that we can get some relevancy out of him sooner than later before I have to start looking on the waiver wire to put a backup tight end in place. The Packers offense, they looked awful. The Packers looked dead awful, like bad, really bad. Aaron Rodgers was gone all offseason. I don't need to say anything. Aaron Jones is fine. Rodgers is fine. Devontae Adams is fine. Tanyan will be fine. Don't worry about the Packers offense. Julio Jones. High expectations for Julio coming into the season. We couldn't expect to see the Julio Jones that played with Matt Ryan for 12 seasons to be the Julio Jones we see with the Tennessee Titans. Give it time. You could tell that him and Tannehill were off. They didn't have much of an offseason. Julio was pretty beaten up during training camp. Give them a few weeks. Let them find their groove. Again, they were put in a position where they had to throw the ball way more than they thought they were going to. It's not going to happen every week. Julio Jones is still going to be a viable option for you guys. Last but not least is the one that I'm maybe the most worried about, and that if I did have a sell, I might have him on that list, and that's James Robinson. I don't have him on there because the Jacksonville Jaguars can't throw the ball 50 times with a rookie quarterback. They just can't do it. The offense is not good enough to keep up. They were playing the Texans. Texans kind of punched them in the mouth. The game was over before it started, and that's honestly what it looked like. There's going to be a better game plan, I hope. Let's sit back. Let's hope that James Robinson gets his touches, gets the game in motion, gets the flow of the game going, and that will help, really, really help rookie quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Again, that's my expectation, guys. Hold. Now, could be a different story next week if I see 2 weeks in a row where I really don't like what I'm seeing. We'll talk about selling this week. Don't sell anybody just yet. Let's stick with these guys and see what.
All right, guys. I'm here with a good friend of mine and back-to-back champion in my Gentlemen's Premier League that I think I've brought up a couple times. Semi-nemesis, but always a fun guy to bounce ideas off of. My good buddy here, Drew Steinweg. Thanks for coming on, Drew.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to be here. Give a little bit of my insight without divulging too much of my process here, but do what I can.
Of course, Drew's like, I can't believe for you guys that don't know, I put out a yearly kind of fantasy prep, and of course he was the smart one that printed it off, and he knew what I was going after. He knew what I was doing. We're all experts. We've been doing this long enough, but he gave me a little bit of flack for sitting out there. I think he gave more flack to the guys that didn't actually use it against me.
I mean, if you're drafting right around you, it's silly not to if you have that much insight on the guys around you, how they're going to draft and who they're going to take. It's half the battle, knowing when you can take guys and comparing to ADP and trying not to overreach, but make sure you get the guys you want.
So give us a little background here. How long you been playing fantasy football? What got you into it? What are some of your favorite things about it here?
Yeah, I started playing fantasy football probably 10 years ago only. I know you've been a long timer, but 10 years ago. And then, I started really getting into it. I started with a couple leagues, and obviously it's evolved over time to, more leagues than you can handle. But I love fantasy football. I love football in general. I was always watching on Sundays, and I had friends who were in leagues, and I was always wanting to jump into one, and I never did. And then finally I got into it, and then I was hooked. Started with some friend leagues that were a little back to back, a little competition, and then it heats up, and you got some bigger money leagues or more strategy. You go to best ball, multi quarterback, super flex leagues. I'm not in any dynasties yet, but got keeper and redraft, and so I try and diversify a little bit so that there's not so much monotony between your teams. You got different strategies and ways to attack players and people on the waiver wires and things like that.
Yeah, if we could find 10 guys that would take a dynasty seriously for 5 years, I'd love to do that, but it's hard enough sometimes to get these guys in year out for a redraft.
That's actually yeah, it's the biggest concern. I'm actually in one now that's actually a 30-guy team, 30-guy league where it's 3 different tiers. So it's kind of tiered like the EPL, like Premier League, where the top league is the top dogs, mid league is middle, and then the fledgling in the bottom is the abyss. And the top 2 or 3 teams in each move up or down, and they take a deposit the year before, so to keep teams involved, so you don't end up in the bottom league and back out. But it's a fun, different spin on fantasy than I've ever done, and it's cool because it keeps you interested year to year and wanting to get up and change your position if you drop down, have a bad year, and it's all best ball, so you don't even make waiver moves or anything. The team you draft is the team you got, so you really got to be invested from the start, and then see how the year plays out as injuries come in and people kind of boom or bust as you go. And it's like all the excitement of fantasy in multi-year competition that you're hoping you keep guys involved year to year. So
yeah, I just started and finished Ted Lasso, so very familiar with relegation now. I had no idea, knew a little bit about it, but I have a much better understanding. I think that's really cool. That's ultimately what I was hoping to get our league to one day. We're not quite there yet. One thing I will say is I'm surprised that the trophy's not anywhere near us. I'm surprised it's not like you're not cradling it. because it's got to sit on your mantle 2 years from now. I figured you'd take every chance you get to put it out there.
It isn't safekeeping, but I didn't want to show off. In my first appearance on the show, I didn't want to rub you the wrong way. I wanted to make sure I get the invite back. So it is back there. I got it. It's well it's well positioned in our living room. We're proud of it. Me and my wife and my dog. So we wear it proudly for sure.
I love it. I love it. So, kind of diving into to week one. Give me, what was your take? How you feeling? I know how you're feeling. Let us know how you're feeling, and what were some of your bigger takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of feelings after week one, trying not to overreact, as everyone should not. I had a bit of a rough week with guys like Brandon Ayuk kind of getting the Shanahan doghouse. A little concerned about that one, just because Shanahan has a history of kind of doghousing guys he doesn't like. So I'm hoping that he comes out of it. May end up being punished by that one a little bit. But I did have three big takeaways. My first one was the rookie wide receivers looking awesome. The top 10 guys, Waddle, Chase, and Devonta. Each one of them. Waddle was 461-1. Chase was 5-101-1, and Devonta was 671-1. Each of them getting their share of receptions, getting their yards, and getting in the end zone. I mean, it's a good feeling for guys who went out and got them. You never know how a rookie wide receiver is going to pan out. Ruggs last year had people kind of feeling burned. But these three guys look like they have rapport with their quarterbacks. Obviously, it helps with them. The bulk of them playing with their quarterback from college obviously helps big time, and it's cool. It's cool to see, and it's exciting, and I hope they continue, because those guys can be electric, and if they can be as electric as they were in college and the NFL, it's going to be exciting to watch on Sundays for sure. The other thing was
I want to touch on the Chase thing. I know towards the that was one thing I'm pretty excited about. As you know, I was fairly high on Jamar Chase coming in. I didn't really mind the drops. There in the last week, if you were drafting the last week, if you saw anything, it was people were giving you flack for taking Tyler Boyd, or for taking Jamar Chase over Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd was kind of finding his way up the draft boards, and I'm sorry, but after 1 week, it's the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase show. Tyler Boyd looked okay, but it reminded me a lot more of Michael Gallup in the Dallas offense. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of points out there, but it's for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to run with.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the guys who don't get a lot of respect, like Tyler Boyd and like a Robert Woods, who aren't like super flashy wide receivers, but kind of can get it done for you. The concerning thing is they add a huge weapon to Jamar Chase that is going to definitely siphon targets from a guy he's used to, Joe Burrow's used to throwing to, and he can just and he's just electric. I mean, he can get open, he can get behind the defense, and Tyler Boyd probably will get his, but it's going to be a lot harder to rely on this year, as long as Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are in that offense. I mean, T. Higgins was amazing before Joe Burrow went down last year. I remember I traded for him in our league because he was a rookie, but he was putting up like he's getting 6 to 8 receptions, putting up touchdowns, getting in behind the defense. I mean, that's the type of stuff you want from a wide receiver that's going to be your every week starter. It was exciting to see for him for sure.
No, it's I love that offense. It's probably in dynasty modes, that was the guys I was targeting a lot. I think Burrow's going to surprise a lot of people as the year continues. I'm not saying I don't want a guy like Justin Herbert, but I think Joe is going to be electric out there. They both those are about the two similar those offenses are so similar. You got Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Eckler. On the other hand, you got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mixon. I'm really excited to see from a fantasy standpoint. Granted, they both pulled out W's this weekend when they usually lose. I'm excited to see how those two teams continue. But sorry, continue. What else was another one of your big takeaways?
I was just going to finish that with, it's a good lesson of not over trusting some of the talking heads that have to talk about stuff with football, because it was all about the drops, and then he looked amazing out there, making people who might have overreacted to the drops regret not getting any shares of them. So the other the second point I had was some of the tight end play of the top tight ends that people maybe used a high draft pick on. So you want to see a lot of return out of those guys, your Wallers, your Kelseys, your Gronks. They finished in the top 4 tight ends. The sneaky one there was TJ Hawkinson. Maybe maybe on the, really getting the come up for if you went out and got him and hope that he could kind of live up to the hype. That team's going to pass a lot. They're going to be down in games. They're not great. And, it's good for DeAndre Swift, obviously, too, catching a lot of balls out of the backfield. But TJ Hawkinson had eight receptions on 10 targets, 97 yards and a touchdown. I mean, can't ask for much more from a tight end.
I agree. I just talked about him in my buy segment where I'm very high. I'm still high on Kyle Pitts. I think it's going to come around. I just like his position in that Atlanta offense as kind of that Julio Jones type. I don't know what they were doing after that first drive where they were force feeding Ridley and Pitts and they made it down the field. They just kind of forgot what the offense was doing, but I couldn't agree more. I mean, Kelsey had 2 touchdowns. Waller had 19 targets. Kittle looked great
targets.
Again. Yeah, and Hawkinson I think is the biggest takeaway there. I believe he was gone in the draft diet, so I ended up with Mark Andrews, which I kind of slid to me in like the 6th or 7th round, which I was surprised about. He wasn't great, but again, that I don't know what that Ravens offense is going to be because neither do they, because they've had to deal with so much here the last couple of weeks. So
yeah, but when you get in that 6 to 9 round of the fantasy draft, I mean, you're rolling the dice a little bit. Maybe a guy who used to be good, who might not be quite be what he is, or a guy who's like maybe a little injured, should be living up to the hype. Those are hard rounds. And so if you can get a guy who can give you, top 3, top 4 tight end weeks, that could justify some of that draft value. And I was just going to mention Gronk, obviously the fountain of youth, him and Brady, just eight receptions and 8 targets, 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, the guy's fountain of youth. And I mean, I don't know offhand what his ADP was, but if you got him and started him last week, I know my brother played against him and he was quite furious. But I mean, when Brady and Gronk go old school, it's good. There's not really much you can do.
Yeah, having to play against him in real life wasn't fun. With the Cowboys, I was not who I was expecting to tear us apart. But hey, I knew coming in, they said he was much healthier, much in much better shape. He knew the offense. They said he was still learning plays going into the Super Bowl last year. Again, he was the guy that took multiple videos of himself in shirts to show that he was working out just to get by. So, hey, at where he's at, he's already the greatest tight end of all time. So it's the NFL is more fun when guys like Gronk are good. So I'm not complaining at all. And again, I think you nailed on the head. We had guys like Logan Thomas, also put a pretty good showing together. I mean, there's 10 to 12, good tight ends out there. The one I was a little more surprised about was actually Mike Gesicki. I thought, him and Tua had an excellent rapport when he went down late in the season last year. They looked pretty good in the preseason, and dude didn't have a catch. So we'll have to see what happens there.
I don't know what happened there either, because I played against him in one league, and I was expecting it was like a Mike Gesicki week where he looks like a wide receiver out there making awesome catches and running great routes. And I don't know if it was something. I don't know, because Waddle had a decent amount of receptions. I saw that though. I don't think Tua threw it very much. So maybe that had something to do with it.
It was a weird game. It was a weird game. Game plan versus game plan. There, Brian Flores versus Belichick. You never know what you're gonna get. But we have 1 minute here, so give me a hot take. Give me something that you wanna send off. Put your name on here.
Yeah. I don't know that I have a huge hot take, but my big thing is I'm trying to go out and get Najee Harris if I can. The dude played every snap this week, and he's going to be involved in that offense. I think they just had a rough week. I think if you can get someone who's worried because he's a rookie and they use the high draft pick on him, and if they're hitting the panic button early, the guy's in every snap, so don't wait long. If you can get out on him, I would go try and pick up Najee Harris.
He was the only running back that hit 100% snap count this week. Some of the guys in the 90s, I was a little bit surprised about. Zeke was still up there in the 90s. Again, we talked about it earlier. There's 12 called off run plays, which I don't blame them. They're not just gonna keep jamming into that defensive line there for Tampa. Another guy I don't have it in front of me. I want to say Mike Davis was in the 84% range for snap count. Again, if they get any idea, if they figure out anything what's going on there in Atlanta, he's going to be 75 yards and a touchdown, as long as he stays healthy. But look at the snap counts, guys. Look at the target counts. There was another. I was reading, some of the target counts on just strictly first read target counts. The two leaders were CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. Both had 14 targets as a first read right off the bat. And that Dak Prescott offense. Surprisingly, number 3 was Mike Williams with 12, and Darren Waller had 11. So. Waller is going to get it's going to look like 15 to 20 targets a game. But exactly when you're looking at trying to go out there and snag some guys. And again, I talked about it quite a bit in my last segment of, hey, who's on the field, who's seeing the targets. I think you nail it. The Steelers will get better. That offense will figure itself out. The defense is clearly studly. I would bet on the offense being a lot better moving forward. They're also going to be playing against some easier defenses. So I'm 100% behind the go after Najee if you can.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks a lot for coming on, Drew. A lot of fun as always. Don't worry, we'll be back again. Guys, thanks a lot for watching the show today. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. And hey, best of luck going in.